Hi, Peter Boyles, of course, the former talk show host on the morning show here on 710 KNUS, and now on the YouTube. We call it The Shoot. I, of course, lifted that from professional wrestling. Something in a shoot is something that's real. I can't begin to tell you, last night I was really putting a lot of thought in, what am I going to ask Brad? Brad Meltzer's with us, and how many years we go back together, and how many hours of entertainment he's provided for me. But when we get to do these one-on-ones and we sit together, it's like this inner person that's in my life that read the things that I read and thinks often the things that I think. So The Shoot welcomes the one, the only. He's in Florida getting ready to get on an airplane. Brad Meltzer. I never know what to say except thank you, and it's good to see you.
You stole my line. I was going to say the only thing I need to say here today is to say thank you. I hope I was telling you off the air, but I want all your listeners to hear it, that I said, if, Peter, you have a tin can and a string, I will be on the other end of it. And I hope you know how many people out there just love what you do and are influenced by you. And I don't, people never get to see the kind of behind the scenes, but they were like, yeah, we're going to do this in a different way. We're going to do this as like a YouTube podcast thing. And I was like, I don't care. As long as Peter is there, I will be there. So thank you for having me back.
I think when I first met you, and we had this moment, and we both realized that we were, first of all, comic book kids. And I remember the conversations, and yet you are this brilliant historian, and you're a wonderful writer, novelist, and a pretty good country historian. But you've taken all of these things that I love, and you've pulled them into one. And that's what I say about you, is that you and I had not dissimilar childhoods, but different in many ways, but nevertheless, comic books, and I'd like to begin there. Why were we so drawn to comic books?
You know, it's funny, when we were kids, I'll speak for myself, I mean, comics are really popular today. You can go walking down the street and the Gap sells it, and you could see it. You know, when we were growing up, everyone wore a sports logo on their shirt. That's how you identified yourself. Yeah. And now it's Captain America, Superman, Batman, Iron Man, what team you on. And that's a cool thing. Now, when we were younger, when I was younger, certainly, no one liked comics in that way. There was one other kid in my entire high school who liked comics. One. And you didn't have all your friends liking the stuff. It was what made you weird. It wasn't what made you cool. It wasn't socially acceptable. But for me, I think comics spoke to, especially decades ago, and I think it's just speaking on a massive scale now. I don't think it's any different what the message is. But, heroes persist. It goes back to the Bible to me, right? And I know that, whether you want to tell biblical stories or Superman or Batman or Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, the stories that persist in our culture persist not because they're interesting, but because they say something about us as people.
Yes.
And yes. I think that superheroes, for many of us, gave us something when we really needed it. Show me your hero and I'll show you who you are. And I, as a kid, I needed that hero. I needed someone in my household. I needed someone and something that showed me that good would beat evil. I needed something that showed me the good guys would win. I needed something to and I don't think it was just because I had black and white thinking, but I needed that. And those heroes taught me that being generous and being kind and looking out for the little guy was a good thing. And I needed that. And I think even if you look at it historically, and I think I might have mentioned this to you, I don't know, privately or on the air, but if you look, I went back and looked at historically what heroes were popular at different time periods. And if you look at the Great Depression, yes, the heroes, the comic heroes that were popular at the time were Flash, Gordon, and Tarzan. It was the Great Depression. People wanted to escape. They didn't want to be where they were. It was so depressing. So they wanted to escape to the 25th century with Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon. They wanted to escape to the jungles of Tarzan. And then World War II starts encroaching on our shores. And this character dressed up in basically a red, white, and blue flag named Superman appears and sells 1 million copies. Yeah. The country's scared. We want someone to come save us, and here comes Superman. Sells 1 million copies. And why? Because the country's terrified and needs someone to, it's the need. And if you look after 9/11, when 9/11 happened and people said, oh, we'll never laugh anymore, we'll never have irony anymore, comedy's dead, we'll never do that again. The first movies that broke through the public consciousness were the X-Men, and Spider-Man was the big one. And once again, we were a country that was scared and wanted someone to come protect us. And I firmly believe, Peter, that the reason why superheroes are so big right now is that for the 20 years since 9/11, we're still a country that's scared and terrified, and we want someone to come save us. And even a bad superhero movie makes $200 million. I think we're just, that speaks to us as a need as a people. And I think that's what, and superheroes have just become more socially acceptable, but I think that's what we are.
I'm a huge Joseph Campbell fan, and I had the opportunity. He was sick at the end of his life, and I was obviously in the business. And his last book, and he came into the studio at KOA, and he had help, he had assistance, but we sat and we talked, and then it was over. We talked, and I had the chance to say to him, "You influenced my thinking," and I didn't realize. And I love how you couch this out. Whether it was professional wrestling, my other great love, and I know that professional wrestling influenced the guys who invented Superman, or all kinds of people we needed. What I was going to ask you, the first cartoon, my grandma taught I don't remember not being able to read, and we sat with my grandma. She lived with us, and we read the comics. We got a morning paper in Pittsburgh, and a rental my dad was in, and I could read Nancy. And then I remember, and by the time I'm 5 years old, I'm reading Steve Canyon. I'm reading Terry and the Pirates. And I think
and listen, those things were, everyone always says, what's your favorite book? We all want to sound really smart, right? Yeah. We all want to say we read Heart of Darkness, or we read Mockingbird, or we read the Bible, or pick your thing, right? But the books that our first morality plays that we ever read as kids are comic books.
Sure.
Those are the first ones we get. For you I remember reading Nancy and Sluggo, but I remember reading Richie Rich and Archie. And then I was like, oh, I can read now. Now I can read Batman. I can read Superman. And then suddenly I was like, I'm off. And then I could read Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore. And then I could graduate to bigger and better things.
Yes.
But our morality is built on it. It's a very, America has, when it comes to creations, things that we've created, not just taken from other parts of the world, and but truly created. We gave the world jazz. That was a really good day for America. But we gave the world the American comic book. We gave them the superhero like that. And that's a beautiful, it's a very American idea that you can, through sheer will, and just, and a great moral compass, make the world a better place. That is not just an American ideal, it's the American dream. And I think that Superman and Batman, Captain America and Wonder Woman all come from that. In fact, I don't know if I told you, but the newest kid, I'm going to show you. Wait, I forgot. Usually we're on radio. I'm going to be able to show you.
Yeah.
But the newest books, obviously I'm here to talk about the lightning rod, and I'm sure we'll talk that. But the newest kids books that we do, and we love doing these kids books, but that are coming out this year. This is my newest kids books that are coming out. I Am Superman.
Oh, wow.
And then we're doing I Am Batman.
Oh, man.
So we're working with DC Comics, and DC Comics brought me, we're going to do these stories, but the story that I tell, these kids books, the Ordinary People Change the World series, has always been about giving your kids better heroes to look up to. What we wanted to do is, everyone's like, well, what are you going to do with Superman and Batman? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, Superman, the reason he's Superman, the most important part of the story is not Superman. The most important part of the story is Clark Kent. Yeah. Because we're all Clark Kent. We're all boring and ordinary and wish we could do something beyond ourselves. And so the whole story in I Am Superman, half the book is about him in Smallville and these two people. The reason he's Superman, it's these two people in Kansas and Smallville who say to him, when someone needs help, you help them, right? And teach him those values, those American values. And I love it. It's as pure a story as I've ever been able to work on.
And remember, and I'm saying this to you, Superman goes to war in World War II. He goes to war. And what I thought was interesting was, I can't think of a comic book hero that went to war in Afghanistan or went to war in Iraq. And I don't think any superhero went to war in Southeast Asia or the Korean War.
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you, World War II. So my senior paper in college was about comic books as propaganda in World War II.
Oh, they're terrific,
right?
Yes.
I mean, truly, that they were created to.
Yes.
I mean, there's moments of Superman literally with the war bonds, saying buy war bonds with a soldier and a sailor on his right and his left, and Then came Captain America on his first issue, punching Hitler in the face. There's no hidden metaphor there. He's punching Hitler in the face. And obviously Wonder Woman and obviously all the other kind of red, white, and blue heroes that popped up after that. But what's fascinating to me, and I will tell you what hero has fought in Afghanistan because I wrote him.
Right.
And I sit on the board of the Medal of Honor Museum to honor Medal of Honor recipients. And I did a story, and it just came out. It's a Batman story, and you see, the first person narrator says, he ran into the hail of bullets. He saw that his friends were needed help. And you see Jim Gordon, Commissioner Gordon gets shot and goes down. He's like, and then he ran in to grab him, and he picks up Commissioner Gordon, and he says, and then even after that, they shot him in the shoulder. He still kept coming. You see Batman take a shot in the shoulder. They shot him in the arm. He still kept coming. You see him coming. No matter what they threw at him in the hail of bullets, he still kept coming. You see him still coming. And he's coming and he's coming. And as you're turning the pages, you see him just never stopping. Batman never stopping. And then it says, and when I welcomed him to the White House, and you go, what? And you go, and as you turn the page, it says, this young man risked his life. And you see, it's the voice that you're hearing the whole time. You see Barack Obama, President Obama, putting the Medal of Honor on a guy named Sal Gunta, who used to live in Denver. And basically what the story you've read that you thought was a Batman story, now you see Sal in Afghanistan, and he was a Medal of Honor recipient, and what he did when they shot him and how he wouldn't stop. And it wasn't a Batman story you were listening to. I took Barack Obama's actual award ceremony for the Medal of Honor, and I turned it into a Batman story. I just illustrated with Batman instead of a hero. And then you see Sal in his, camo and fatigues. And it was important to me to send that message back that all of us have that potential in us. But I felt like it is not just up to World War II to do that. And obviously it wasn't to be obviously pro-war or anything like that, but to use that superhero as a metaphor for us is what's happened for decade after decade after decade. How can we not continue to watch it?
As a reader, one of the things that occur is after the Second World War, radio gets investigated. Top 40 radio was called the Scandals. And of course, then they probed comic books. And I think it was done in the Senate. I know the radio stuff was done in the Senate. And that brought about the code.
Comic Code Authority.
And all the comic books that by this time I'm 12 or something, 11 or 10, now I'm into the really horror comics. I had a cousin who
all the EC stuff.
Thank you. And the Old Witch and that stuff would frighten me and I'd read it. Then what happened at that point?
Yeah, I mean, what happens is, so the Comic Code Authority comes about because they basically say comics gonna rot your kid's brain. They're indoctrinating your kids.
Juvenile delinquents.
Right? Juvenile delinquents are gonna create horrible things and what's so crazy, this is actually a perfect segue, Peter, is we are oddly, I don't know if you know this part, but for our kids' books, I Am Rosa Parks and I Am Martin Luther King Jr. recently got banned. Right in front of me. Yeah. Right? They recently got banned in York County, Pennsylvania.
I know.
And I thought, you think we're done with that. What happened, the Comic Code Authority eventually comes around. They put this Comic Code Authority on every comic book, and they basically say you have to abide by a certain code so it could be okay for kids. And then eventually, at some point, I forget if it's in the late 60s or early 70s. I actually forget when it comes off. But eventually, it actually may even go into the 80s. People realize this is a joke. This is an absolute joke. This is just fear-mongering by parents who are trying to kind of neuter and censor what your kid reads. And we all know that all of us have a moment where we read something that's quote unquote what our parents might think inappropriate for us, but it opens up the world and makes it bigger.
Yeah.
And it doesn't indoctrinate your kids into becoming horrible people. It's not, Superman is not going to rot your brain. And they realize this is obviously a joke and an overcorrecting, but we're back there now. And
I agree, totally agree.
Our kids' books, I Am Rosa Parks and Dr. King, it bears just telling the story quickly, got put on a list with 200 other books that were good for teaching race to kids and how to talk about race issues to kids. It had nothing to do with the content, but this school board in York County, Pennsylvania, said, we want to read these books. So these 200 books, it was our books, Malala's book, Sonia Sotomayor. I mean, amazing. Sesame Street's book on racism. They said we want to read them before we give them to kids, which is a good idea. They take the books and they say they're going to read them, but a year goes by. The fast one that they pull is a year goes by. They never read any of them. So what becomes this kind of freeze on the books, don't use them until we read them, becomes a ban, because for a year,
Sure.
librarians and teachers don't know what to do. It had nothing to do with the content of the books. They just were, it was ridiculous. And I went back. I wound up speaking at the school board. I went on Fox News and CNN and MSNBC. All of them called me on their own to say, hey, do you want to come on and talk about this? When Fox News and CNN and MSNBC agree, that something's wrong, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
But what was fascinating, and this is the interesting part, is I went back through history, Peter, and I looked to see what was the first book that was banned in our culture. And it was actually Harriet Beecher Stowe's classic Uncle Tom's Cabin. Why did they ban Uncle Tom's Cabin? Because they thought slave owners were worried about the idea of that slavery was something bad. They were worried about people thinking that. They were worried that we're going to indoctrinate kids out there and your family out there and have them think that slavery should be ended. And anytime you see a book ban, whether it's the Comic Code Authority, whether it's right now in York County, Pennsylvania, it's always about two things. It's about power and a fear that you're going to lose that power. Sure. And that's all. And I can't believe we're in 2022 and still dealing with this nonsense. But anyone who sees, you'll see that word over and over, especially as the election approaches. They're indoctrinating your children. They're going to indoctrinate your kids. And the only time, that word has been weaponized against the Black community, the Jewish community, the Muslim community, the gay community, whatever other group there is, they want to make you fear monger. So I hope everyone out there don't buy into the fear and fight back.
You can't hold back ideas. History is replete with it. And, at one time, any totalitarian regime, whether it's Franco's Spain or Lenin's Soviet Union or Germany under the Fuhrer or Mao's China, North Korea must be a real fun place. But they always attempt and they always lose. And history is this magic bar that I love. And so, we've talked endlessly about people coming into libraries and not just school libraries, but as you well know, there are people that come into bookstores and take books. There's people that move into libraries that want to suppress an idea. History is on our side.
Yeah, nothing can stop an idea. Right? It's the most powerful thing in the world is an idea.
Absolutely.
And as you and I have discussed before, if you're cheering as books are being pulled from the library shelves, you're on the wrong side of history. You will be revealed as the bad guy in the story.
Sure.
Whether it was the people who were banning Shakespeare, or they were banning, Huckleberry Finn, and if they were banning Alice in Wonderland, or banning rap records in the 80s, or comic books in the 70s and 80s, you're going to be revealed as the bad guy.
And Huck Finn's out now anyhow. And I remember starting to read Mark Twain when I was 12 maybe, and thinking that Huckleberry Finn was an incredible saga. And now I realize today through the eyes of these people, that's not a good book. Yes, it is. It's a very good book.
Well, the thing that's great about it is again, why did they want to ban Huckleberry Finn? Right? Because it was basically showing a black man and a white kid being friends.
Yeah.
Right? That's a dangerous idea to a certain person out there, or a certain closed-minded person, right? I mean, but it works, and you can't ban it all you want. Like, the first thing I do, the way that I fought back, I went and spoke at the school board, and these kids that spoke with me, they were even more incredible than I was. Like, they were incredible, saying these books are so good, how could you ban them?
Yeah.
But I always say, whenever I see a banned book, last week I saw I Am Jazz and Call Me Max were banned here in Florida. You know what? The first thing I did is I immediately went and bought copies. Yeah. I saw them ban a book. There was a book. What just got banned? I just bought it. I have it downstairs. I can go look. Anytime I see a book banned today, last week, so many Mouse, whatever it is, buy the book, donate it to your library. We got 5,000 copies of I Am Rosa Parks donated to York County. They now are reading it as part of the curriculum in their classrooms. We made them eat that book ban.
When I'm a little kid growing up in a blue-collar steel mill town, the church would have banned books. The church would, and I remember Harrison High, Lady Chatterley's Lover. I can give you
There's a book out there called hey, your parents are your mom. What to say when your mom died.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you want you're pro mom's dying.
No. Yeah.
To some kid out there, their mom died, and this
Yeah.
book is the only way to understand in an age appropriate way how to deal with it. And
Yeah.
there are kids out there who have, whether it's a transgender relative or an uncle or an aunt or somebody that they want to, in an age appropriate way, know what it is. And all the fear mongering, don't forget, all this fear mongering that happens for one reason and one reason only, is that angry people vote and angry people watch. So it's good for ratings and it's good for votes. And all they're trying to do is weaponize you. Don't listen. They don't want you to listen to the logic of it. They just want you to be like, they're going to scare you. They're going to get your kids. No one wants their kids indoctrinated.
The thing that I thought, and I had Peyton Place was on that list. I'm reading it, and I had these wonderful uncles that were pulp readers, and I'm like 13. My uncle Barney hands me Mickey Spillane. It's over after that.
Listen, I gave my kid who's 13,
Yeah.
when he was 13, I gave him Alan Moore's Watchmen. And
you
the reason
go.
I didn't, and I gave it to him because a friend of mine said, my dad gave me this when I was 13. He got Watchmen when he was 13 because I thought maybe he's not ready for it. He said, and I didn't understand it all, but I knew I was reading something that I shouldn't be reading. It was bigger than me. It was too big.
Well, wasn't that the draw though?
But that was the best part. The world
Yeah.
got bigger. And that's, if your parents are supposed to do anything, yes, they're supposed to protect you, but they're also supposed to show you that the world gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more you open your mind to it. And if you're trying to just like put your arms around a kid and say the world can only be here, good luck with that. Tell me how it works out.
Yeah, well, no one, as we just moments ago said, ideas. Mao, I'm quoting Mao, said, if a woman is going to have a baby, you can have 1,000 people standing around her with rifles and bayonets, and she's still going to have that baby, or she's going to die. And I always thought of ideas that way, that the idea of who African Americans were in society, who gay men and women were, all those kinds of things. It's what's the great line from history? It is an idea whose time has come. And the stuff that I grew up with, and I'm older than you, and the stuff that I saw today, I laugh at what once was considered verboten or not to do this. But I do remember the church putting out this list that say these are the books you don't read. I'm doing my best to get.
That is a reading list right there, right? I mean, there's no better way to sell it.
Because
let me tell you something. Our book, the first thing we did when I Am Rosa Parks and I Martin Luther King Jr. got banned is we said, everyone go buy. I went on my Instagram, I went on my Twitter, I went on my Facebook. I said, everyone buy every book on this list. Don't just buy our books, buy every book on this list. We got 5,000 books donated to a school district that has 5,000 students. That's how much people just activated and said, fine, you want to take books away? We're going to have you eat these books.
And what we know is you'll weed out what you want or don't want, or what makes sense or what doesn't make sense. But the moment you say you can't, and if you're this little geek kid that read comic books, and one way or the other, you're going to find a way to read that, or it's going to change your mind, or you're going to realize that maybe you've been had. Come back to The Lightning Rod, which is the new novel. One of the things I love most about, some of the things I love about you and your work, I always said that every time in the past doing radio shows, when you meet these people that talk about they're reincarnated or they've been, every one of them has either been Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, Mark Antony. There was nobody that shoveled the crap in the stables, in medieval Belgium. Did you ever notice that? So the thing that you do with Zig and Nola, and I'm a Zig and Nola fan, these are just everyday guys, men and women. Well, Zig is.
Yeah, they both are. That's where they come from. This is The Lightning Rod is a book. I'll start and set it up just with this. Is it starts with one of my great fears, because all things should, as we've been talking about, our own great fears, and that is the character in the opening scene hands his car keys over to a valet at a fancy restaurant. Valet takes the car keys, but rather than parking the car, he hits the little button on the steering wheel and says the magic words, "Go home." And now he's driving to the man's house, and the valet has the man's car keys. He's got his house keys that are on there too, because this is a robbery. He's going to rob him. As he walks into the house, there's another man waiting with a gun, because this isn't a robbery at all. This is a trap. And when the body comes to our hero Zig, Zig sees something on the body no one else is supposed to see. It leads to one of the government's most closely guarded secrets. Now, I just ruined chapter 1 of the Lightning
No,
Rod.
no, no. That's
It goes. But what the book is really about, Peter, as you know, is it's about dysfunctional families, and we all have dysfunctional families, and then we grow up, and then we build our own new families, and those are oddly dysfunctional as well. And Zig is just this regular guy who works as a mortician and rebuilds people for the military, rebuilds someone's face, smooths it over with clay for 12 hours so a family can see their son one last time, or rebuilds someone's hand because a mother says she wants to hold her son's hand one last time. And he believes you make the world better by being good and being kind and putting more generosity in it. And that's a beautiful idea. It's a completely naive idea, but it's an idea worth fighting for.
sure.
And Nola is basically, when she has a very different view of the world than Zig. She believes if you want the world to make sense, it's not about putting kindness in it. You got to grab it by the throat and you make the world make sense. And she basically works as a painter. She worked as the artist in residence. This is true. Since World War I, the U.S. Army has had a painter on staff who paints disasters as they happen. Whether it's storming the beaches of Normandy, whether it's 9/11, they will paint the disaster. And Nola can see things when she paints. She sees your weakness. She sees the way you tie your tie. She can tell whether you're righty or lefty. She can see the way you pull your belt, whether you're righty or lefty. She can see whether you have crow's feet on just one eye, because that's the eye you aim with. You're a hunter. And now she knows, that that's the assassin in the room. She finds your weakness. And she was thrown away as a child and basically will never have the father that she wants. Zig will never have the daughter that he wants so badly back. And neither of them will ever have what they want. But together they have to knit together and solve this case and basically build this kind of new dysfunctional family. And to me, what you're seeing is not just me putting two characters to solve a great crime and a great case, but you're seeing my own view of the world competing. Like, I am Zig, and I believe you make the world better by being kind. I am also Nola, and feel when you see an injustice, you fight like nobody's business. And which one's right? Of course, both of them are right.
Well, it's always been believed by literature historians that brilliant men like you, or women, they're really writing themselves. That what's the line? Everyone has a novel in them. Can you put it here and make it, worthwhile for other people? But you think of the great Hemingway, or they're really, we say in recovery from drugs and alcohol, we all tell the same story. We just tell it a different way.
Well, there's your Joseph Conrad, right? I mean, the same way
Absolutely.
that archetype works. I mean, and listen, I feel like all I'm doing, this is my 25th anniversary as a writer, as a published writer. And I don't know if I'm a better writer or not, but I know what I am, Peter, and that is I'm a more honest one. And what you see in Zig and his fears are mine. And what you see in Nola and her fears are mine. And I know one thing, I'm not that special. And if I feel that way about the universe, that hopefully there are others who do too. And it goes right back to the research. I mean, listen, I've taken readers, and I've spoken, I've taken readers into the underground tunnels below the White House, into the secret labyrinth below the U.S. Capitol. In this book, and this is true, I found out that the U.S. government has about a dozen secret warehouses hidden all across the country to deal with bioterror attacks, whether it's anthrax or whether it's smallpox. And it means that if there's an attack in New York or in Los Angeles, in Texas or in Denver, that within hours they will have antidotes there right on your doorstep. And I said, you're telling me the government has secret warehouses hidden all across the country. Nobody knows about them. Nobody knows what's in them. No one can go inside. I want to go inside there. And what you see in the end of The Lightning Rod, when you get to the end of the book and you read, it's a fictional thriller, right? You get to the end and the killer's revealed in them, and you find out who done it. It takes place in one of these warehouses, but what you see in that warehouse, I didn't make it up. That's what's really inside there. I won't ruin the ending, but that's what you see at the end of The Lightning Rod.
Because I've read it, reminded me of in the end of Indiana Jones and when they're hunting the Ark of the Covenant. Now you know where I'm going. And they go in that warehouse.
Well, the crazy part is I actually found the government has that warehouse at the end of Indiana Jones. I went there. They
I
literally
know.
call it the government calls it the Indiana Jones warehouse. It's
Think
filled with
about that.
art and things like that. It's not
Yeah,
the Ark of the
yeah,
Covenant, of course, but
yeah.
I went there. I used it in the book. I was like, I
Yeah, I
gotta
know.
use this as the scene. But it's exactly what, of course, it reminds me of. I mean, it's like a Costco for the end of the world. And
Yeah.
that's how, I mean, all these things for me are always me going, that's cool. I want to do this. I want to look at it. One of the things I found is I went to, and this was a great one for me. I have a buddy of mine who used to work in one of the top secret security agencies in the country. And I said to him, how do we possibly have conversations with each other that are secret when all of our emails are tracked and can all be tracked now? How do we even do it anymore? And he said to me, you're absolutely right. He said, the moment you hit send on an email, I don't care if if you use WhatsApp, I don't care if you use Signal, whatever you use, if someone with a de-encryption program out there wants to read it, they will read it. So he said, so here's what you do. He said, you're going to write a message to me, write an email, open up a Hotmail account and write that email on your Hotmail account. But don't hit send. Instead, hit save draft. And you're going to hit save draft, and then you're going to give me the login to your email. I'm going to log into your email account. I'm going to open up the drafts folder, and I'm going to see what you wrote. I'm going to read it. I'll delete it. I'll write you something back, and I'm going to hit save draft. And now you and I are having a full conversation. Neither of us have sent a single thing into cyberspace. It's a great idea, Peter, until General Petraeus, the former head of the CIA, used that idea that's in the lightning rod to cheat on his wife. I called my buddy when it happened. I'm like, that's the idea you gave me. He's like, I know, I got something better for you. And the thing he gave me that's even better, you'll see in the lightning rod, I didn't make it up. But those all come out of my desire for like just wanting to find these cool things for our readers when they read the book.
Do you believe there are secrets?
I do, of course. There are endless secrets. I do.
Yes.
Do I believe? There's a difference between do I believe there are secrets and do I believe that there are conspiracies that people can hold to their deathbed.
That's a better question.
That's the thing. I mean, my obsession for so long was finding out who Deep Throat was. I spent like decades trying to figure out who's Deep Throat, and I thought, in fact, at the time, Deep Throat was rumored to be the highest, one of the highest level Nixon aide who wasn't indicted. Was a guy who I knew. And I went to him, I said, are you Deep Throat? When I finally, kind of became friendly with him, he's like, it's not me. And I thought, oh, maybe it's still him. He's lying to me. It's a secret.
Yeah.
And you think that's going to be a secret that never gets revealed until Mark Felt, who was really Deep Throat,
He was
got
very
so
ill.
cool that knew he was going to die and said, I want people to know my story.
I did.
And that's where secrets fall apart. Where I used to live in Washington, D.C., there was a guy across the street who died, and his family was selling the house. And we just out of curiosity, we're like, oh, let's go see the house. We never went in there, and we'll go see the family that's selling it. And they realized he was a member of the CIA.
Sure.
And the family didn't know. Nobody knew. And you know how they found out? Because on his bookshelf were all these Cold War era CIA books that were written by other people.
Yeah.
But when he died, the family opened up his library, and he had gone through all the books, and he crossed out all the lies that were in them and said, here's how it really happened. Wow. And he wrote it in there. He couldn't help himself but correct it. And that's how secrets come out.
Here's my latest. I, like so many people, reading the life of Putin. Did you know that Putin's grandfather was Lenin's chef?
No. Wow.
He goes on to become Stalin's chef.
His grandfather does.
His grandfather. He's an old Bolshevik.
And then what's his father do?
His father is a submariner in the Second World War, terribly wounded, becomes part of Zhukov's army, and was a hardcore Stalin supporter.
His father's in World War II. I didn't realize he's that old.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, remember, his mother is very devout. His maternal grandmother dies of diphtheria during the siege of Leningrad, and he has this rooted history into the Bolsheviks through. But imagine being trusted to be a chef for either one of those two.
I mean, what's so funny is we were talking about ordinary, being Cleopatra, being Mark Antony. I think history is always. We may know those bold-faced names, but history is always kind of comes together by the people you've never heard of. I'm far more interested in that chef story than I am in like the big name.
And I'm reading it, I went, wow. Who are you I loved you could come stay at the house. Um, who are you most drawn to? What time period are you most drawn to? Because you leapfrog, you truly do.
Yeah, I do leapfrog. So we do these. Obviously, we do books like The Lightning Rod that are
Yeah.
fictional thrillers, and then we also do these nonfiction books. We did the Lincoln Conspiracy about the secret
Yes.
plot to kill Abraham Lincoln. We did the first conspiracy to kill George Washington. I don't know if you know this. We are just announcing. We just announced it. The next book in the series in January is called The Nazi Conspiracy, about a secret
Wow.
plot to kill Winston Churchill, Stalin, and FDR, all in a triple assassination attempt. An incredibly lost
Where
piece
were
of
they
history.
when was it Tehran, or where were they going to be?
It's exactly
Yalta?
where they were when they were in Tehran.
Tehran. Yeah,
Yeah,
I read about Tehran. That
yeah,
it
it's an
was.
incredible moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you get to see it. Obviously, doesn't just show you what the Nazis were planning in this kind of like one fell swoop, but it's also about that interaction between
Oh.
Winston Churchill and FDR. And I will say, to answer your question, so the Nazi Conspiracy comes out in January of 2023. But for me, what's fascinating, I used to be drawn to the Revolution and to Lincoln. After researching and writing books on them, and World War II, I should say. After researching and doing the books, I still love the Revolution, but I'm far more interested in the Civil War and World War II than I
Yeah.
ever have been. It's one of those ones that I keep, no matter how deep I scratch, I'm still interested in figuring
Yeah.
out more. So that's when those are the three that my brain goes to, because I think that what makes a good president is not about what your campaign was or what side of the aisle you were on or any of that nonsense. What makes a great president, you see it over and over through history, is a disaster happens and you have to improvise. And you have to see if you're up to dealing with this disaster. And those three moments in time were three disasters that were unlike anyone could possibly come up with. And faced with a moment where we could have made the wrong choice and the selfish choice, you had people there who made the correct choice and the moral choice. And I
Yeah.
think for me, I feel like that's what modern day politics is missing, is that compass, that moral test, that lets people find, that there's a great quote I used in a book once, and it says, you can live your life with a calendar, you can live it with a compass. And I think we need to live our lives with compasses.
Well, I'm a huge FDR fan, and the two great war leaders are Lincoln and FDR.
It's,
I mean, it's
I was
and,
struck, I was struck by FDR's, and again, we grow up, oh, here's the New Deal. It was fascinating to me also that FDR is, as the war goes on, the Republicans hate his domestic agenda. They don't ever let up on that. But they say, for the good of the country, we support you in the war.
oh yeah,
And that's a fascinating thing. Right now, it's like you hate or love everything that and it's obviously I'm particularly interested, as you and I are talking, with the Ukraine right now. It is the one thing that has brought the two sides together for the most part. I know there are outliers on both sides, but has really made people be like, maybe we should have more in common than not. And I'm fascinated when the country faces those moments.
in that moment where Charles Lindbergh and Senator Bora and all the American firsters, particularly Charles Lindbergh, they try to get back into the good graces. And FDR grudges that. And he knows what Lindbergh has done and what he said. But eventually, they do let Lindbergh back in. And look at stuff like that. And I know it's, sort of people call it the dustbin of history, which I don't buy that term. But it speaks to, and I'm a huge FDR fan. And yet
FDR is so fascinating, and even down to his death is even the book ends. I won't ruin but it ends. We actually, the exact moment of his death is so poetic and so beautiful. It's such an incredible little moment.
And his girlfriend is in the other room, or maybe with him, depending on which
on
historian
you're
you
good.
read.
You know it exactly right. That's right.
Yeah, and they're telling stories. And as someone once said, FDR, the press would sit in the train car and play poker and drink, and he would go and make his visits. And they never gave him up.
No, that's when those secrets were secrets, right? But even then, they came out, right? Even you see JFK's stories, you see all these stories, because eventually people get old. The thing that undoes, and maybe this is the perfect place to end, the thing that will forever undo secrets, forever, for all of time, is the Deathbed Confession. Because when someone's on their deathbed, there's a reason in law school when they teach you what what can be admitted as evidence? And they say you can't, you can't say what someone else said to you, that's hearsay. You can't say this, you can't say that. The one exception, there's obviously many exceptions, but one of the greatest exceptions that they make is for deathbed confession, because people know you don't lie on your deathbed. And at the end of the day, I don't care what the secret is. I don't care if it's JFK or anything else. Someone's on that deathbed and just knows that they're going to take this to their grave, or they're going to open their mouth.
Dr. Franklin said, 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead.
That's exactly
I love that.
right. That's
I love that. And that's a motto for a motorcycle club as well. 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. So
listen, let me leave you with this, because
Okay.
this is important. You and I have spoken for almost 2
times.
decades now. It's
Yeah.
almost 15 years now.
Wow.
And your friendship is so meaningful to me. And I want to stick on this theme of history, which is this. I know you said, okay, I'm not going to do the show, I'm going to do it this way, but I hope you know, and I've said this to you privately, but it bears repeating, that there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people out there who have listened to you for all these decades you've been on the air. And they know your name. You will never know their names. You'll never know them all. And I hope you know that you unleashed in them what we were talking about earlier, the most powerful thing in the world, which are ideas. And they are all better and more informed, and you've raised ideas and questions. And even if you were talking about the wackiest thing or the best thing, whatever it was, you made them question and question authority. That is what you are the king of. And I hope you know you have changed the world in that, and that all those people out there, they're part of your legacy too, just as I am. You helped start my career. You gave me a platform to talk about the lightning rod or whatever other book we were hawking at that moment. But I hope you know that we are all part of your legacy, and on behalf of all of them, just thank you.
And I want you to know about you and me. Jockeys are only as good as their horses. You're a great horse.
I'll take that any day.
I love
Thank you,
you.
my friend.
Be safe. Thank you.